In April 2018, the UN General Assembly unanimously decided that the 3rd of June would henceforth be the day when we celebrate the bicycle and those who ride it. So tomorrow is the 6th World Bicycle Day, but it's the first time it's not on a weekday. And that's why we're having this webinar today, because tomorrow, of course, we all want to go out and ride our bicycles. Now, from this corner of the world, my corner of the world, Europe, we have many reasons to be optimistic about where cycling is going. Things are moving, stuff is happening, and at the highest levels of decision making. In February of this year, the European Parliament passed a groundbreaking cycling resolution calling for governments to double the number of kilometers cycled by 2030, for cycling to be treated as a fully fledged mode of transport, for the EU to develop a real cycling strategy, and to declare 2024 the European Year of Cycling. And at the same time, the Belgian minister, Georges Gilles, he launched a European Cycling Declaration that he actually told us about last year at our World Bicycle Day webinar. And yesterday, Croatia and Cyprus were the latest 2 countries to sign it, bringing the total number of governments who have signed now to 16 out of 27, with Germany, Italy, and Poland being the biggest holdouts. Now, the governments who have signed, they call for an EU action plan to prioritize cycling, and for indeed also for 2024 to be the European Year of Cycling. And the European Commission has read the signs and has promised to respond to these calls by the Parliament, by the Member States, and to come up with something by later this year. We will have to see what the European Commission will come up with, but we have high expectations for ambitious goals and for substantial funding, actually. We at ECF, our members, our partners, our stakeholders, we are very excited about all this. And they are important steps towards the unleashing of cycling's further potential in terms of sustainable transport, health and well-being, road safety, livability, green jobs, and in general, greater equity and inclusion in our communities. And that's all very good news for current cyclists and for future cyclists, and not just in Europe. All around the world, amazing things are happening in Africa, in India, in China, elsewhere in Asia, in the Americas, in Australia. And our expert speakers today will help bring to life some of this for us. All around the world, there's a growing recognition of the crucial role of cycling and active mobility, not only in battling climate change, but also, and perhaps even more so, in dealing with the growing public health challenges that we are facing. That's why we are very happy with our partnership on active travel and health that we launched last year with Fire Foundation. And today we are launching a new partnership together with Cities Changing Diabetes, which is supported by Novo Nordisk, where we will be publishing our first joint report. Thanks for your support, and more about it later. Next year is a leap year. So we will be celebrating World Bicycle Day on a weekday again, on Monday, or perhaps we'll do it on the Sunday before. In any case, we hope that next year we will be celebrating World Bicycle Day during the European Year of Cycling 2024. And with that, I now hand over to Jill Warren, our CEO at ECF, who will introduce to you our speakers and who will moderate the rest of the event. Enjoy the webinar. Thank you.
I can't stop my video. I can't stop my video myself. Thank you, and welcome to everybody. Thank you, Hank. I would like to introduce our next speakers who are going to give us a taste of what's in this report that we're launching today. I'd like to hand over now to Joe Jewell, who is the Director of Cities Changing Diabetes, and Philip Amaral, the Director of Policy and Development at ECF. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jill, and thanks so much, Henk, for the warm opening words. It's great to be here. I'm just going to start sharing my screen, and hopefully the video will start. There we go. Starting my video. It's great to see you all, and great to be here. Can you see my screen yet? There we go. So we're very happy to be joining you today to celebrate World Cycling Day, and it's also great to be joining ECF, an important partner of ours now, working on advancing cycling for healthier and more inclusive cities. I had the chance to join the meeting in Leipzig a couple of weeks ago, and it was a really impressive gathering of advocates, policymakers, researchers, all working on the topic of cycling from different angles and perspectives, but all working towards one goal, which is, to improve the cycling rates and create enabling environments for cycling, and working towards shared goals such as planetary health, but also population health. And I think we are coming at it from the population health perspective, but also recognizing the planetary health co-benefits. So a little bit of background around the Cities Changing Diabetes program. As Henk mentioned, it's a public-private partnership. It's been running for the last 10 years, established in 2014 as a partnership between Novo Nordisk, UCL in London, and also the Steno Diabetes Center here in Denmark, which is a center of excellence on health promotion and diabetes prevention. The goal of the program is really to address the systemic drivers of type 2 diabetes, but also obesity and other chronic diseases, recognizing that it is the environments in which we live and our day-to-day settings that are actually contributing to increasing rates of diabetes, obesity, and other chronic diseases around the world. And we also recognize that cities were a place, particularly in low-income countries, where rates of these conditions were increasing most rapidly, but also that policymakers at the city level and communities at the city level had the power to make real positive change. And so we took a focus on the urban diabetes challenge. And we also made a decision at the outset to focus on vulnerable populations, because in many contexts, we know that conditions like type 2 diabetes and obesity have a social gradient, and there are barriers in being healthy on a day-to-day basis that vulnerable populations, low socioeconomic groups face on a daily basis. We're pleased that over the past 10 years, the program has grown to now more than 45 cities in our network around the world, a very diverse range of cities. And we've also grown our partnership network to more than 250. So the way that we engage with cities is to create local partnerships, local public-private partnerships, where we try to engage with the municipal government, local community-based organizations, and often an academic partner, in order to make sure that the action that we're driving is evidence-based and informed by the local context. Physical activity is a really important focus for us. We look at the shared drivers of type 2 diabetes, obesity, and other chronic diseases, physical activity being one. Others include addressing unhealthy food environments. And a third is looking at what are the structural barriers towards sustainable financing for prevention initiatives. But physical activity is a really important area of work for the Cities Changing Diabetes program. Fiona Bull, world-leading expert on this topic, is on the panel, and she'll probably be able to talk to this much more from the WHO perspective. But why is physical activity a priority for our program? Well, of course, it's linked to the increased risk of type 2 diabetes, but we also have an issue whereby 80% of adolescents and 27% of adults are not meeting the WHO recommended levels of physical activity. And we know that beneath those headline figures, there's also a big equity issue, whereby there are particular groups in the population that are even less likely to meet physical activity recommendations and are thus at greater risk of chronic diseases over the life course. So we also look at how we can drive change for healthier cities and promote physical activity through our programming. And the reason, again, as I mentioned, is that, you know, why have we chosen cities? Why have we chosen urban health? Well, because cities are settings whereby, you know, the environment, whether that is the roads, whether it's our workplaces, where cities actually have considerable influence over shaping what is the component of a healthy life. As I mentioned, the healthy food is one component, but certainly safe mobility and opportunities for physical activity can be influenced at the city level. So where we try to invest in local partnerships, we look at prioritizing physical activity at the city level agenda, but also then more specifically looking at how we can create spaces and places that encourage physical activity, how we can encourage urban mobility for better health. And then finally, and this is also relevant to the scope of the report that we are launching today with ECF, around how we can also you know, look at the equity angle here and make sure that everybody has equal opportunity or equitable opportunity to be active throughout their day-to-day lives. And just a slide, you know, to emphasize, of course, the health benefits here of cycling. You know, this is why also we felt a partnership with ECF would be strategic, because cycling is a really great way to improve physical activity as part of daily life, because of, you know, the decreased risk of mortality, but also other cardiovascular benefits, and of course around body composition as it relates to body weight and also fat distribution. And then finally, the co-benefits I mentioned at the outset in terms of, you know, cycling actually having positive environment impact in terms of reducing CO2 emissions. So all in all, it seemed a really good match. So I know that Philip is going to go more into the details of the report, and so this is just more of a handover slide, but really we were really keen to work with ECF, given their global network and the you know, the insights from local partners that they had around how we can use cycling as a vehicle for healthier and more inclusive communities. And we really wanted to look at the vulnerable groups to make sure that they were able to benefit and take advantage of the, you know, the wonderful opportunity that cycling can be to be, you know, healthy and active as part of everyday life, but recognizing that some communities you know, face particular barriers, whether that is low socioeconomic groups based on gender, for example, in some contexts, or people living with special needs. So really, we were so pleased with the variety of the case studies that we were able to identify with ECF, and are really very pleased with the report itself, which Philip will go into more detail. So that was just a little bit of a brief overview from my side, and I'm happy to stop sharing my screen now and hand over to Philip, and looking forward to the panel discussion. Thanks so much, and thanks to all the team that helped prepare the report.
Hello, everyone. I'm Philip from ECF, and I'll describe a little bit about what this report contains. I was really delighted to work on the report with Cities Changing Diabetes. The report is titled Cycling for Healthier and More Inclusive Communities. So oftentimes in our advocacy, we need to ask decision makers for more resources, more money, more cycling infrastructure, more political recognition, all to get more people cycling. And we always need to strongly justify why this is needed. Well, in this report, the reasons are made abundantly clear. Cycling is a force for so much good and for a wide variety of people. And as this report elegantly shows, the proof is in the pudding. Cycling brings joy to people. It forges community bonds and inclusivity. It motivates people to exercise and to explore their surroundings. And it enables people to overcome their limitations. And we know this because it happens. We can see it. This is what this report is about, witnessing the positive change that cycling creates. And we as ECF, together with Cities Changing Diabetes, we want this report to inspire people elsewhere in the world to do similar projects, to harness the power of cycling as the force of good that it is. Now, in this report, it features several cases from around the world demonstrating how cycling changes people's lives. When we first discussed the concept with Cities Changing Diabetes, we both quickly agreed that we wanted this report to be very practical and demonstrative. We wanted to show our audiences how it is possible to catalyze change by introducing the bicycle into the equation. And at ECF, we were and are in an excellent position to co-produce a report like this. Our vast network of civil society members, nearly 70 in Europe and around the world, as well as our deep network of cities and regions with over 50 members in 25 countries, representing more than 50 million citizens, means that we sit at the crossroads of a wide variety of cycling experiences and stories, all of which we can adapt and tell to many dozens of different kinds of audiences, from decision makers at the level of the European Union, to activists in cities and towns, to national governments, to businesses and employers who aspire to be bike friendly. That and our yearly flagship event, the VeloCity Conference, which is the world's largest cycling focused event, provides us with a treasure trove of potential cases that we can use for a project like this. So that's how we co-produced this report with Cities Changing Diabetes. We dipped into our deep networks and cases that we considered and included in our yearly VeloCity program. And with so much potential content, it was really hard to choose, but we had to. We reviewed a long list of potential cases with Cities Changing Diabetes and together chose a handful that we thought illustrated the potential of cycling in a very compelling way. So in this report, we tell the story of cycling from various perspectives. A nationwide project that promotes safe cycling for elderly adults in the Netherlands, while also providing them with valuable social connections. Another program in Netherlands, in Utrecht, that provides students in a special education school with an opportunity to develop their cycling skills and to gain mobility independence. We profile a school cycling challenge in Lagos, Nigeria, that inspires young people to cycle and to have a chance to partake in healthy competition while also demonstrating the value of cycling for everyday life. We look at community building projects in Karachi, Pakistan, and Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, created to provide citizens with the chance to cycle with other like-minded people, demonstrating safety and power in numbers. We look at a women's empowerment project in Brussels, Belgium, all based around riding the bike and maintaining the bike. We review an effort to provide preschool-age children in Ljubljana, Slovenia, with positive cycling experiences. We look at a project to promote the integration of migrants while fostering their ability to cycle in Freiburg, Germany. And we also profile a social enterprise in Mozambique that creates access to bicycles as well as economic opportunity. A report like this is hugely valuable for the advocacy that we do at ECF and for others who promote cycling, both at a European level and at a global level. It shows that cycling is not exclusive. It can be for nearly anyone, regardless of age or ability. It shows how cycling is a way for people to incorporate daily physical activity in a way that is enjoyable and it's useful for their mobility and transport needs. It shows that cycling is a community enhancer, and strong communities come with a host of additional benefits, from increased democratic engagement to just having more safer neighborhoods. In other words, a report such as this enables us to bridge the gap between what is hypothetically possible with cycling and what is actually possible. And fortunately for cycling, and as this report shows, it's easy to show the practical benefits cycling generates because one only needs to see it. And we hope this report provides you all with a very good glimpse. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for that, Joe and Philip. We want to invite our panel to turn their cameras on now so we can introduce you briefly. We've got 6 fantastic panelists with us today who will be discussing not only the report, but maybe some of its wider implications and what other kinds of things are going on to promote cycling for better health and other benefits around the world. So to introduce our panelists, we will have Lauren Thomas, who is the founder of Mozambikes, the bike-focused social enterprise that Philip mentioned in Mozambique, which is featured in the report. We will hear from Maren Alers of Egra Menged Impact, a cycling community in Addis Ababa, which is also featured in the report. We'll hear from Katja Paternoster of BC Vrtek, the program to teach preschool children to cycle and familiarize them with cycling in Slovenia, and also in the report. And beyond that, we'll hear from Joe Jewell again from Cities Changing Diabetes to share some more thoughts and maybe some deeper insights on how the Cities Changing Diabetes program works and how this fits into that. We'll hear from Sheila Watson, who is the Deputy Director of the FIA Foundation, which is a UK-based charity committed to promoting safe and sustainable mobility across the world. Sheila leads the foundation's work on environmental and sustainability issues, on clean air and gender, and also its research program. And ECF currently partners with FIA Foundation in the coalition called PATH, Partnership for Active Travel and Health. We will also hear from Fiona Bull, the head of unit physical activity at the Department of Health Promotion at the World Health Organization headquarters in Geneva. Fiona leads a team working on supporting countries to increase participation in physical activity through active transport, sport, and everyday activities. And Fiona's also led the development of influential reports, such as the WHO Global Action Plan on Physical Activity 2018 to 2030, the new global guidelines on physical activity and sedentary behaviors 2020, and last year's report, the very recent first global status report on physical activity 2022, something that we read with great interest here at ECF and we've quoted extensively. So I would like to start with Lauren Thomas from Mozambique, who will show us a couple of slides and tell us a bit more about the initiative there. Over to you, Lauren.
Thank you very much, Jill. Let me share my screen. And head over to my slides. Great. Well, thank you again for including Mozambique in this incredible webinar and in your report. We've worked really hard to build this social enterprise, and so it's amazing to have it validated with a community like this. Mozambique is a social enterprise that we started in 2009 to address mobility obstacles in Mozambique and how they exacerbate problems of poverty in rural African communities. I'll touch on very briefly the need for bicycles. I mean, this is just a kind of a key infographic that I think many of you are aware of mobility issues in rural communities around the world in low-income nations. But what's kind of interesting is that 90% of these rural trips are currently made on foot in Mozambique. We're talking about short trips, 10 to 15 kilometers, people carrying, 20 kgs or less. And so this really is an issue that should be solved with bicycles and clean form of transit. I mean, it would sort of be detrimental to think of how motorized transport would come and fill this actual need for short trips that is characterized by the mobility needs in rural Africa. And then just to say that, we've got thousands of people in Mozambique that are still dying from entirely treatable diseases because they don't access health centers, very low levels of literacy and graduation rates because of the distance of schools. I think it's quite accepted that that mobility interventions can change the way that people live and change opportunities for their livelihoods. And so we started Mozambique with a model of branding the bicycles. We thought, how can we make bicycles accessible to people that are literally earning $1 a day? They don't have savings. And so even what some people around the world might consider to be a low cost item is simply inaccessible for people millions of people in Mozambique and in similar countries around the world. So our model started with using the bicycle effectively as a moving billboard to say, this is much more effective advertising into rural communities, where of course there are millions of consumers for many different industries that their traditional forms of advertising simply could not reach. And as we started pitching this model years ago, we understood that the need for bicycles was far greater than just as, moving small billboards. There really actually is a need for transport and transportation solutions within many different companies and development organizations as well. So before I go to the next slide, I also just want to flag the second picture up at the top here. This is the current Mozambique's factory that we've moved into. This is only about an eighth of our space right now. We currently can produce about 500 bicycles a week and often do. We have almost 60,000 bicycles on the roads around Mozambique right now. They are not all branded. The branded bicycle model is now one of our segments. We also do have non-branded bicycles where we collect funds as a partnership through a 501c formed out of the US, Mozambique Social Development, and people around the world can raise funding or make individual contributions to donate bicycles into communities as well. And so these communities effectively are not stakeholders of any of our branding clients. And so we can identify other communities in need, women's farming associations, secondary student girls that need access to school. Again, these communities that are unlikely to receive branded bicycles as being stakeholders of any of those projects. And we then also channel programs directly to those communities. And so this is our warehouse. We have 40 workers in our warehouse now and a separate office with 8 administrative staff. And it has been quite a journey to get to the size that we are now, I must say. These are just a few additional pictures and the different channels that we work with. So we have our donations model, we have our private sector, we have public sector, of course. There are government agencies that are, accessing basic service needs, and access to those basic service needs is really a critical part of it. And then the development sector, I think, has been a real growth sector for us. We've, one thing that I was going to talk about in a minute is that we've really had to come in and change mindsets. When we started, nobody bought bicycles. They simply, we would talk to a construction company, they don't buy bicycles, but we identified that they have these large industrial locations that people are taking 15, 20 minutes to walk from one side to the other. So they had a mobility issue. We would talk to NGOs that say, we do agriculture, we don't buy bicycles. And we identified that their extension workers are only visiting 1 to 2 smallholder farmers a day. And with bicycles, they can visit 6. They have health activists that can visit 1 community a day. And with bicycles, they could visit 3. So we really have been diving into every single potential partner, understanding their model, and then building kind of a mobility program within that model. And so if you ask me today, we don't provide bicycles and we don't sell bicycles. We sell access, mobility, very impactful advertising. Imagine that the advertising that you've put into a rural community is also helping people access clinics and hospitals and their farming plots and bring clean water to their homes. And so, we really start to increase the effectiveness and the social impact of any initiative that is happening. In addition to the bicycles and rural mobility, we've recently started programs. I think I'll skip to the next page just to show pictures rather than talk about it. We've started programs about sustaining the bicycles and increasing health and safety around bicycles. So we now have programs, we call it the Bike Negocio program, which is a bike business program, where we train a network of entrepreneurs to be bike mechanics around the country. We give them not only intensive mechanical training on the bicycles, but also entrepreneurial training, because they are now running small businesses and they are earning daily incomes by sustaining the bicycles in their community. And whenever we build a bike negocio into a community where we have just done a bike distribution, there is a built-in guaranteed demand for their services because the bikes are there. We also do not ever put a bicycle into a community without doing basic training on best practices for bicycle care, easy maintenance, good road norms for using your bicycle. And so those are the pictures that you're seeing on the right side as well. It's all about increasing the social and safety component of the bicycles as well. Overall, I would just say, you know, quality of the bicycle is critical. This is not a bicycle that we've picked off a shelf. We have designed this bicycle piece by piece, and it has evolved. Every time we bring in a new container of bicycles over the last 10 years, we tweak something, turn something to get the best, very strong bicycle. It's got to be a tank for these roads here. And yet we do everything that we can do in country. We literally import bags of nuts and bolts and spokes because we want to give more local employment and reduce shipping costs and control the quality process. Yeah, so that I've come to the end of my introduction of Mozambiques.
Okay. Lauren, thank you so much for that. That's really, really fantastic. I have one follow-up question for you before we move to the next panelist. You know, based on all of this experience since 2009, what's maybe one piece of advice you would give to somebody who is thinking of doing something similar in another country?
Yeah, I think it's to not be scared when you're pioneering something new. And this goes back to how when we came in, you saw bicycles around, but they were considered something that were aspirational to save up for and to buy. And yet the bikes that we found in the market were terrible quality because it is a low-income country. And so bikes are being dumped in as cheaply as possible, which means the product was as cheap as possible. And so we said, this has to change. And we made this model of a very high quality bicycle that could be made affordable or available to the people that really need it. And it involved a lot of changing of mindset of businesses, changing of mindset of people. For some reason, everyone thought that the 28-inch bike was the perfect bike because those are the most common model that was there at the time. But it actually is quite big for the majority of population. And so, you know, our bicycles are 26 with adjustable seat posts and handlebars. And so it's, I think, just don't be overwhelmed when you're doing something completely new.
Hey, thanks very much, Lauren. I'd like to move now to Maren Ehlers from the Agro-Menged Impact Project, which is a community-based organization with a social enterprise model in Addis Ababa, which uses bicycles as a tool to create new jobs, protect the environment, promote road safety and non-motorized transport, and to empower communities. So Maren, please tell us a little bit more about this initiative.
Thank you very much. Let me quickly share my slides also. All right. Is it visible? Perfect. Great. Thank you for having me. So I am Maren. I'm co-founder and director of Agro-Menged Impact. We operate in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. And I'm quickly going to tell you about the CSO now. So we are a community-based organization with a social enterprise model and a grassroots movement. We've been existing for about 2 years now, a bit more than 2 years. And we are officially registered as a civil society organization here in Addis Ababa. And we have 3 ongoing community projects I'll tell you about in a bit. Generally, we are working towards and advocating for sustainable cities, non-motorized transportation, gender equality, road safety, environment protection, but also at the moment we're looking very much into the idea of public health by bicycle. And you have to think about Addis Ababa as a kind of typical African city, so with a lot of congestion, so many cars. The city is built for cars, basically, which is very, very sad. Traffic routes is a different topic here. We have not only cars on the streets, also pedestrians, animals on the streets, a lot of street vendors. So with this in mind, we created Agro-Menged Impact. Our first project at the moment is under the topic of community development, bicycle awareness, and it's called Cycle Community. And Cycle Community, the word comes together with cycle and community. we do awareness creation, road safety. We cycle twice per week, Wednesdays and on Sundays, and we do basically group rides. We promote the bicycle as a fast and green alternative. As I said, this is super crowded, and bicycles are not known for the daily use here. People don't cycle to work, they don't cycle to schools. So it really needs groups like ours to promote cycling and to promote road safety. So as you can see in the pictures, we always want our members to wear helmets, to wear vests, and if they don't have, we provide them, just to make the whole movement safe and to develop the community. We have about 400 members now and covered about 400 kilometers throughout the last 2 years. But we are community work, so we don't go super fast, we don't go super far. We cycle on average maybe 15 kilometers that everyone can join. And in this group, we like to promote cycling also with events. We celebrated World Autism Day a couple of weeks ago. We celebrated Africa Day last weekend, and actually tomorrow we will also celebrate World Bicycle Day. And for this, we're going to cooperate with the 6 other African cities. It's going to be the first cross-country African bicycle event happening tomorrow. Our second project works towards social inclusion and gender equality. So we launched a Cykeltejalish. It means you can cycle in a female version, and it is a fully free woman bicycle project. We work towards gender equality, women empowerment, social inclusion. We want our women to be leaders. So once they graduated their cohort, they're encouraged to be trainers for the next cohort. It's a 4 weeks program, and we just finished the second cohort, and the demand is super high. So for now, we have about 16 women per cohort, but we have already more than 80 women registered for further cohorts without officially announcing the registration even. It just, everyone wants to learn how to cycle here, because women, they don't usually cycle. And yeah, we work towards Addis Ababa's non-motorized transport strategy, because it says in 2028 they want 50% of the cycles to be women, but in reality right now it's maybe 1%. It's literally, women have so many problems here in the city why they don't cycle, and I could talk about it a lot, but I don't think I have time for this. But yeah, this is our second project, Cykeltejalish, fully free woman bicycle training. And as you can see on the pictures, we have all kind of women, different ages, different social classes. And sustainability of the project is this: after they learn how to cycle with us, they join one of our other projects. So they keep on cycling, they keep on training, and keep on learning. Our last currently happening project is working towards social and behavioral change communication. We are co-founders of Critical Mass Addis Ababa. Most of you probably know Critical Mass. It's a monthly happening bicycle movement all over the world. And I think for now it's probably around 1,000 cities that participate. And now we are one of the cities. We are super proud of it. We launched it in December last year. So actually last month we had 6 months anniversary. And we have about 50 participants cycling in this event, which is a lot. I know for other countries it's a small number, but for others it's a very, very big number. We have different groups joining, a lot of internationals also, a lot of kids. And it's really a nice event where we promote road safety and reclaiming the streets of Addis for one afternoon. And it's very rewarding if it's on a Friday night and you see people waiting in taxi lines for hours and you see people being stuck in traffic for hours, and our group passes by with loud music, with speaker, and it's creating a lot of attention. And we communicate the tool of bicycles. And we have a lot of dancers joining the group because we want to bring some Ethiopian vibes to the Critical Mass. So every other kilometers we stop and do some traditional dances, and it's a very rewarding project we have. I think that's from my side so far. So these are our 3 ongoing community projects in Addis Ababa. Thank you.
Okay. Maren, thank you so much. That was really good. I would love to participate in your Critical Mass sometime, especially with the dancing. I've not seen that at a Critical Mass before. Although I think what they all have in common, or at least all the ones that I've seen, are somebody on a bike with a boom box and the music and the atmosphere. So you're a relatively new initiative, and you've got pretty ambitious plans for what could be next. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, we definitely want to scale up and sustain the projects we're doing right now, because I mean, we have invented the wheel. So critical mass is nothing new, for example. It exists all over the world, but it is new to Addis Ababa. It is new to Ethiopia, and it's relatively new even to Africa. And so we want to sustain these projects. We want to scale them up. We want to, include more people in these movements. But then also we're looking into cargo bikes. In Addis Ababa, there is no cargo bike. It doesn't exist here. There's one wagon, it belongs to us, and we use it to pull a speaker for the critical mass. But apart from this, cargo bikes doesn't exist. But at the same time, there are a lot of street vendors selling fruits, selling books, selling everything, holding it in their hands, basically. So we want these street vendors to have cargo bikes. So the work for them is much more easy, and their sector is much bigger. They can access many more people. This is one of our idea, cargo bikes, and we want to look into early childhood education. I think there's going to be a presentation after mine. I'm looking very much forward to this one. But also tourist bikes. We want to do tourist rides by bicycle, because Addis is, on the one hand, I mean, super crowded. It doesn't really make sense to drive a car. But at the other hand, a lot of international companies are here, a lot of international employees coming. So we're really looking into tourist bikes also. And yeah, we have a lot of more ideas, but I think these are the three big ones we want to push forward for now.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Maren. I'd like to move to our next speaker now, Katja Paternoster from BC Vrtek in Ljubljana. Katja, I think you would probably agree with all of us at ECF anyway, that it's never too late or too early to start cycling. And so the BC Vrtek initiative is an initiative to familiarize preschool children, so they're really the very youngest with cycling. So we'd like to hear a bit about that from you. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Great to see you all. Thank you for the word, and I'm delighted to be here. And yes, Jill, I totally agree with you, and nobody is too young to start cycling. And both our projects, PBIP Kids and BC Vrtek, are on a mission to get kids into cycling by helping their parents or teachers to choose the right bike. PBIP Kids is a startup founded in Ljubljana in 2021. It is a service for kids' bike subscription, and we exchange bikes as the child grows. And during the first year of our service, we realized that not only parents have their pains, but also kindergartens have their problems. For example, they don't have high quality or durable bikes. They have little storage capacities. Nursery teachers are not trained to teach cycling, and they have no service for bike repair. So knowing all that, we had the idea how to solve their problem. That's why we expanded our business model from B2C to B2B, or better to say B2 educational institution that is financially dependent on the municipality. Accepting that fact, we developed BC Vrtek and presented it to the city of Ljubljana, who supported it open arms. And what is actually BC Vrtek? Well, BC stands for cycling, and Vrtek means kindergarten in Slovenian language. So it is a pilot project for the implementation of cycling lessons and subscription for cycling equipment, such as helmets, balance bikes, and pedal bikes, placed in a public kindergarten. BC Vrtek program takes place in a safe environment where children, under the guidance of either professional staff or trained nursery teachers, develop their cycling skills. We use specially designed and developed didactic aids, such as bike trainer for kids, limbo bike and tipping ramp, and so on. We organize Mobility Week, where kids and parents are encouraged to commute with bikes, scooters, or public transport instead of a car. So it was the first time in the history of Slovenia, actually, that kindergarten kids would go on a bike trip into the city center, and you could imagine the child's pride. And yes, what is really the impact of BC Vrtek? Well, BC Vrtek increases the child's agility, balance, social skills, independence, and all of that strengthens child's self-confidence and they get motivated for daily exercises. And this is how they learn lifelong patterns, which paves the way to a healthy lifestyle in adulthood. Our goal is to provide preschool children with a positive cycling experience. And by addressing kindergartens, we definitely reach a larger number of children. Last but not least, we believe that every bike deserves more opportunities. Kids Bike subscription service prolongs the life of kids bikes by maintenance and reuse, which are the main goals in circular economy. PBIP Kids is building a community of skilled and environmentally conscious little cyclists. And I would like to present a video of Bicivărteț. Philip, please.
Wabił obciutek zraku je, vjetar z mano smeje se. Prihaja nekaj novega, nekaj nenavadnega. Hu-la-la-la-la, 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 lepo je. Hu-la-la-la-la, 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 lahko je. Iskra v tvojih je očih, na mojih ustnicah nasmeh. Ples metuljev za oba, dvigniva se do neba. Vem, da sem na pravi poti, ali prideš mi naproti. Nič na svetu me ne zmoti. Ali prideš mi naproti? Hu-la-la-la-la, 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 lepo je. Hu-la-la-la-la, 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 lahko je.
Katja, thank you so much for that. I think all Velo citizens on the webinar today who went to Ljubljana last year for the Velo City Conference will remember not only the beautiful city scenes there, but also that song, which was the theme song of Velo City and which we couldn't get out of our heads, and you've put it back in our heads now, which is great. Yeah, so I just have one follow-up question for you. What are your plans for replicating this and scaling it up to other parts of Slovenia?
Yes, our vision is to promote Bicivărteț program in all kindergartens around Slovenia by establishing a dialogue with municipalities who finance the kindergartens. But they rarely have funds to support cycling for healthier and more inclusive communities. But there is one region in Slovenia where the diabetes is abnormally high. So maybe this is an opportunity for us and Novo Nordisk to make local partnership with this Zasavska region and to implement Bicivărteț in the public kindergarten there.
Okay, I think that's a conversation for you to have with Joe. Yeah, no, we are always looking for ways to spread the word and fund these great programs when we know that they work. So on to our next speaker. So I would like to turn to Sheila Watson from FIA Foundation now. So, you know, in addition to doing the report that we've done with Cities Changing Diabetes, we also want to use our annual World Bicycle Day webinar as an opportunity to highlight other people and organizations that we've been working with and who are leading the way in supporting, promoting, and enabling more and better cycling all around the world. So FIA Foundation works for the health, development, and progress across issues like road safety, clean air, sustainability, sustainable mobility, children's rights, and livable cities, all very compatible things with what we've been talking about today. And so, Sheila, could you maybe tell us a bit about some of the things that FIA Foundation's doing to support cycling promotion around the world and to make it more available and accessible to people?
Good morning. Hi, and thanks, Jill, for including me in this wonderful session, and to all those people who've gone before presenting. It's really inspiring stuff. Yes, so as you say, the work of the FIA Foundation, which is a UK-based philanthropy, does focus on the kind of widest possible breadth of issues in sustainable mobility, from cleaning up vehicles and their emissions right the way through to supporting initiatives around infrastructure development so that we can have safe journeys for school, lots of work on clean air, and therefore basically everything, the broadest sweep of things about how we all get around. And I think for all of us working in the sustainable mobility sector, we can sometimes feel that there is just one issue and it's our issue. I see that quite often, and that's understandable. Expertise is a great thing, and when you're an expert in an area, you care about that thing, and we need that. But at the foundation, I think we feel really strongly that all of these issues are completely interlinked. Indeed, when you consider that sort of pattern of different initiatives and areas of interest, you really quickly realize that whether you're worrying about dirty air or you're worrying about the climate and mobility's impact, then cycling just has, which gets far too little attention in the more sort of formal transport planning arena, just has an absolutely essential role to play in the kind of whole future and success of any form of work around sustainable mobility. And so others here in the seminar have already rehearsed all the benefits of cycling. I'm not going to repeat them, but from a perspective of achieving climate benefits, there's no doubt that investment in cycling facilities is a real no-brainer. It's a win-win. We did some work, or supported some work, by ITDP recently, which showed very clearly that dollar for dollar, they're based in America, so they look at things that way, protected cycle lanes are not just carbon neutral, but they fully mitigate the greenhouse gas emissions created if the same amount of money was spent on a road. So putting it another way, they analyzed it that for every $200 spent on a highway, 1 ton of greenhouse gas emissions is created. The same amount of money spent on protected bicycle lanes, something we saw more of during COVID, actually completely mitigates that level of greenhouse emissions. So if we just didn't build so many highways and built a lot more protected cycle lanes in the ones that we already have, we would be having a net gain in terms of the greenhouse gases that we were avoiding. So cycling investment unquestionably delivers, greener, safer, and more equitable cities, and we see it as central to the climate challenge. So that's one of the reasons why we recently conceived of and worked up this idea of PATH that you mentioned, Jill, with yourselves, with Walk 21, the Partnership for Active Travel and Health. And that's got a really broad group of supporters across the sector. I think balances very importantly the extraordinary level of focus that we see in the mobility world on things like electrification. The concept of a silver bullet. Well, it isn't a silver bullet. If we do only that, we will never achieve the 1.5 degrees. There's a gap, and it's a gap we have to act on now, and it's a gap that can only be filled by the sort of zero carbon modes of walking and cycling that we're talking about today. Indeed, it's not only essential, but it's entirely practical, because a recent piece of work by PATH showed that at least 60% of our urban journeys could be done by walking and cycling. It's an option which is entirely feasible and doable. So yeah, so PATH has produced a range of research work, the work I just mentioned, also a very recent report we published just last week, which analysed walking and cycling policy. In the case of that report, it was looking at the 64 countries who are members of the International Transport Forum, because that's where we launched it and we wanted to have that hook of analysis. And basically, it showed that whilst more than sort of 4/5, 80% of the countries at the forum had walking policies, and then half of them had walking strategies, when it came to cycling, half had a cycling policy, but only a fifth had a strategy. So there was good work. We were able to point to good work and good examples, but massively more needs to be done. And that's really, I think, what the role of PATH will always be, not to supplant the work of its many, many members or replace that work, but to draw together interesting threads and identify key themes really that we want others to focus on. So that's one thing that we've been supporting, but it's by far, not the only thing. We work with UNEP on an initiative called Share the Road, which has been going for many years, which is all about creating space, protecting and promoting walking and cycling, in that case in Africa. We recently supported some research with Flown in Africa, looking at women's cycling habits and how we might promote those and work with others to promote those. And then finally, another thing which brings to mind in our kind of pretty rich spread of initiatives and work is just our general campaign on speed and name speed limits. We are part of a global campaign to push for 30-kilometer speed limits in urban areas, the difference they make in terms of road safety and the impact, for example, on a child of an incident, a road traffic incident, is phenomenal. It's the difference between life and death, but also alongside other things like safe streets, school streets, where we're restricting access of motorized vehicles, they go to create an atmosphere in which cyclists feel safer to cycle. A key issue, as we all know, in the uptake of cycling is how safe people feel doing it. So that's sort of a quick run through the sorts of things we support, but I cannot emphasize strongly enough how important we see cycling to be in this sustainable mobility jigsaw of different elements and pieces.
Okay. Sheila, thank you so much for that. I do have a follow-up question for you. You get involved in so many different programs, and I would like to ask if there's any particular insight or lesson learned that you want to share from any of them.
That's such a good question. That's huge, isn't it? It's kind of $1 million question, as they're commonly referred to. I think we as a foundation always have gone further than just dispersing money, which is good and bad. If you get the money, you might want to be left alone to get on with the work. We tend to keep getting involved because we're really advocates. And so for us, a core element of advocacy is evidence. The evidence we use is the work of our partners. So we rely hugely on having excellent partners and creating a strong evidence base for the advocacy that we do. Not just data, but also practical, art of the possible initiatives to show what can really happen in the real world if you try something different, often really useful if you're dealing with a sort of skeptical planner or politician who doesn't believe a thing can change. So that's one thing. I would also say, for the foundation, we are very keen on convening. It's amazing how many times you just totally assume there must be some sort of global campaign for walking and cycling, for example. And although there's amazing work by yourselves at ECF, there's amazing work by other partners like Walk 21 coming out of the WHO, all of that, and of course your partners here today, sometimes just convening people, bringing people together so that we can all share each other's messages. I'm absolutely passionate about that. So we talk about cycling, but we also understand, the vital importance of other elements. So I think convening, but I suppose the final thing is just people. I'm struck all the time by how the very best work we do comes down to the sorts of amazing people you've got on the call today, really committed, really passionate. We rely on that completely, the real change makers. So I think it's sort of around those sorts of things that we see that, really kind of good stuff can be done.
Thanks very much, Sheila. I'd like to turn to Fiona Bull now from the World Health Organization. So across her career, Fiona's focused on developing scientific evidence and understanding on healthy lifestyles to inform public policy and implementation in practical programs in community settings. So I'm very much aligned to what we're talking about here today. And Fiona, I'd like to ask if you could maybe highlight for us what kinds of things WHO is doing to promote cycling and active mobility more generally.
Well, thank you very much, and a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone here, and congratulations, and let's celebrate our World Cycling Day. Very great pleasure for WHO and myself to join you on this occasion and this day, and to forward the discussion and the knowledge sharing on promoting cycling. You've asked a very big question there, and I don't have slides, but what I'd like to do is take your question of what is WHO doing and take you through the sort of areas of work and headline where WHO is contributing to progressing this agenda, and obviously open for questions and follow-up. It falls broadly into the sort of policy work, technical work, and then adding our voice to the advocacy that Sheila's just spoken on. So, on the policy work, of course, thank you for mentioning that at the outset, we have guidelines, global physical activity guidelines in particular, that recognize the contribution that cycling as a behavior has, as an activity, is health enhancing by contributing to total levels of physical activity and thereby preventing some of the diseases to which physical activity can contribute reductions, like heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, major concerns and public health priorities, and also contribute to promoting health through well-being, mental health, and improvements in those areas. That's taken forward, of course, having recognised, and it's not trivial, that cycling does produce those benefits. So some of the research is very much about where cycling has been quantified and produces those health protection and beneficial benefits. But secondly, we've got cycling in the policy arena. So not only in physical activity, the Global Action Plan on Physical Activity has at its centre promoting cycling along with walking as forms of physical activity. But of course, as is evident from the previous commentaries and interventions, cycling is an important part of our road safety agenda and is in the sustainable mobility agenda at WHO. So the second decade of action on road safety includes modal shift and protecting and promoting walking and cycling as modes of sustainable transport. And picking up where Sheila was taking us, increasingly we are seeing and putting cycling and sustainable transport into the climate mitigation policies, in addition to urban health and healthy aging. So we work on cycling by making sure it's positioned within global policy documents, and we call on that for countries at national level. Let me move on to a couple of other areas where we're working on. Global monitoring. We've got to monitor walking and cycling to know what's happening. And in that area, indeed, WHO leads on providing and supporting countries measuring physical activity, which has a measure of cycling and walking in that metric. Many would know it, the Global Physical Activity Questionnaire, as part of the adult surveillance system WHO runs, known as STEPS. Lots of words, lots of acronyms there. The message is we're measuring and monitoring walking and cycling as a behaviour. Now, it's done elsewhere in transport surveys, but still there is a wide variety of methodologies used and metrics reported. So lots more to do, but when we want to know how much is going on, we have at least one go-to place. And of course, it's not enough. But that domain-specific analysis does show us, and is important to use, because it shows us where and in which countries cycling as a mode of transport and physical activity is contributing more to their levels of physical activity. That gives us a strong argument for the agenda of protecting and promoting more cycling. Moving on from just policy and monitoring, tools and resources and guidance. And so in this area, there's a couple of things to introduce or remind everyone about. Firstly, how can we quantify the benefits that everyone has been talking about, the deaths that we can avert from protecting health, ensuring road safety so we can avoid deaths through road crashes? Well, the WHO Health and Economic Assessment Tool, short name HEAT, is a very valuable tool. And we've been working directly with a consortium that has updated that tool. So there's a new version, globally applicable, and we've been helping countries use that HEAT tool, for example, in Ghana and Ethiopia, just in the last year. And they use the tool to quantify economically the benefits we've just been talking about, lives saved, and therefore the cost of those, deaths averted, and now with the new tool, the CO2 emissions averted. It's a really important tool because it adds strength to our advocacy about how much we can and the return on investments of investing in cycling and its a necessary infrastructure. We have a forthcoming tool, which many would be aware of and waiting for, and that is the consolidated policy recommendations from WHO on how to increase cycling and walking. And I can reassure those listening and panel members, it's in my hands and we're at the final editing stage. It's going to have 7 recommendations, which I'd be happy to outline, but they really do add to the sort of documents that are out from other important sources, but hopefully will provide that go-to place for WHO's consolidated policy recommendations. There are a couple of other areas which I can go into, Jill, but we do monitor, and you kindly mentioned the global status report that's monitoring countries' progress, not the behavior of cycling, what countries are doing. And we think, and I'm sure many would share, this is a really important function. So some of the data we've just reported in our global status report in 2022 is that only 42% of countries have got a policy promoting walking and cycling. We can't disaggregate it yet, but in the forthcoming data, it is disaggregated. That's less than half. Less than half of countries have got a policy promoting walking and cycling, and it complements, Sheila, the work you just mentioned about policy analysis. More importantly, and complementing this, is the concern the report raised about less than half of countries have got key road safety features that will protect our cycling, i.e. safe crossings, separated paths, speed management. And less than a quarter of countries have got best practice in their legislation on speed and alcohol. What this picture presents is not enough is being done to secure and protect and provide for cycling. We need the data to strengthen the advocacy and then call for policy. So of course, that's the third and final area I'll mention. Not only technical work, not only tools, not only policy, but now advocacy. And I'm pleased to be part of this because this is one of the forums we advocate and echo the call for more policy action and implementation, more financing, more capacity building. We work at all levels. And so I'm sure many of you are aware of last year's high-level UN General Assembly that focused on road safety. This is at the highest level of government commitments, where we can get road safety on the agenda and use that to promote walking and cycling and the provisions needed. Climate change. I'm pleased to hear and know that our climate colleagues are working to include sustainable transport and the role of non-motorized transport, and a health day at the forthcoming COP this year. And this week coming, I'll be going for the first time to an International Association of Public Transport, to their Global Public Transport Summit, advocating for walking and cycling and better interconnectivity between modes of transport to reduce personalized vehicles. So across this, policy, monitoring, technical advice, technical tools, technical support, and advocacy. We're very busy and we're doing our best to contribute and work with all of you to echo and expand our progress on promoting cycling. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you very much for that overview, Fiona. Really, really helpful. And like I said, we absolutely love the reports and things that you produce, because it really enhances the advocacy that we can do and the evidence we can bring into that. Maybe just one short follow-up question. So the report that we've produced, intended to be a very practical tool and piece of guidance for people to follow around the world in enabling more cycling. do you have any tips for us about how reports like Cycling for Healthier and More Inclusive Communities can help move the needle, and how we can make sure it gets into the right hands?
Yeah, look, very good question. I think it's a role we all have to play with each other's resources and tools. And I've been doing a lot of reflection, particularly this week with World No Tobacco Day, about the skills and tactics that tobacco and other public health issues use to keep an item, an issue on the agenda. So World Cycling Day and similar conferences like Velocity, the voices that we all have combined, like Sheila mentioned, through paths, but also individually, we need louder voices, constant voices, everywhere we can. So there's no specific answer. It's not like you're missing out and there was something obvious else to do. It's about doing more of it. And of course, coordinating so that there is a combined voice. We're on the same page, if you will, in terms of what we're asking. And I can see the strength and the advancement of our arguments, the consistency across today about the benefits, and we're beginning to quantify those. I encourage the use of heat and other tools, because we have to tackle the arguments through multiple channels. The economic, known as the pocket, the minds, where's the evidence? But I think your report also, and speakers on this panel, have shown the hearts, how it can be done and why it should be done and where it is being done. So I think one of the features that I very much recognize and congratulate you on is the examples of the initiatives. And no one argument, hearts, minds, and pocket, will be enough. It's about all three, and we all have different strengths in those areas. So I certainly look forward to promoting your tool as long as and resource along with others. And I think it's about us all working at the levels of influence that we have.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Joe, I'd like to turn back to you now. So you've heard more in depth from the people involved in some of the initiatives profiled in our new report, and you've heard from Sheila and Fiona as well. And I would just like to ask you maybe to elaborate a little bit more on Cities Changing Diabetes mission beyond what you told us before, and the interconnected elements of that. And then talking about your experience, what kinds of things do you think cities need to do more of to address the challenges and to bring these benefits into the communities?
Thanks so much. I am trying to start my video. I got prompted, but yeah, there we go. Someone can prompt me again. Is it coming up? For some reason it's not, but I'll start answering, and then hopefully the video. Start my video. There we go. Start my video. Is it coming? For some reason the video doesn't want to start, but that's fine. I'll answer the question, which was a really important question, and I really like the way that Fiona phrased it at the end around hearts, minds, and pockets. And there is a lot to do here. And I think, as I mentioned in the start of my presentation, that we were established 10 years ago, which means that we're coming up to a 10-year anniversary, and we're using that anniversary to rethink and reorient our strategy, keeping all the things that we think are really working very well, but also taking some strategic choices and decisions around where we want to go to have greater impact. So, I mean, I think the first is that, just for this audience, physical activity is going to be a stronger focus, and we're looking at really scaling our work in cities to promote physical activity and also moving towards more impactful action. And how do we drive more impactful action? I think trying to tick off some of the buckets that Fiona mentioned to alleviate barriers for action at the city level. And really, the part of the purpose with the case studies is also, the cities that are part of our network really value being part of the network, because they want to understand what are the critical takeaways from what's happening in one place that they can learn from, what are the top tips that they can identify, and also what is the potential for scaling up initiatives, either within a location or to other locations. So that's where we're really hoping to head with our next 10 years, if we can be ambitious in that sense, to really look at actually moving a bit further along the policy or the policy implementation sort of line from mapping and understanding insights and convening to actually driving some impactful action. And I think we're going to do that by focusing on the issue, looking at the neighborhood as a platform for prevention, and of course continuing our history and the real spirit that we have around looking at hypothesis of change together and engaging with local communities. And we will only do that by working with like-minded organizations within the health space, but also within the urban planning, as Fiona mentioned, but also the climate change community. And one of the things that we're working on right now with C40, for example, is a health benefits of the 15-minute city tool, which is expanding the scope of what are the health benefits that we would gain if we implemented some of the key concepts of the 15-minute city. And of course, we're using the inspiration from the heat tool that Fiona mentioned. So that's it. I don't think my video ever came on, but I hope the key message was conveyed.
Thank you. I'd like to ask our other panelists to put their camera on, because I have a bit of a speed round last question I'd like to ask all of you. So I would invite each of you to maybe name one thing that you think policy and decision makers should do to make cycling for healthier and more inclusive communities a reality in more places. So maybe I could start with Lauren on that one. Lauren, what do you think policy and decision makers should do?
Great question. Thanks. I think it might be a bit of an obvious answer, but I think that they just need to keep cycling in mind as they are conducting their daily business activities. But really what I mean is, when new infrastructure is being built, it should consider that cycling is a means of transportation that needs to be growing in adoption. And so there should not be new promenades built into a city without areas for biking. There shouldn't be parks without bike areas. There shouldn't be new main roads and arteries without either bike lanes. Of course, that's the pipe dream sometimes, but even just wider margins on the road. And so I just think that, as they are going ahead with urban development, you just must keep, and rural development, you must keep bicycles and cycling as one of the critical factors for design and not an afterthought.
Thanks very much. That's a good one. Maren, what would be your one thing you think policy and decision makers should do?
Thank you. I would say listening to the people on the ground, including the groups on the ground that work in exactly these areas. It happens a lot also here in Addis, we see it, that the decision makers come up with nice ideas, with the good ideas, but the implementation on the ground is in the end not really functional and not really accessible for the cyclists who are the ones who are using them. So I would really encourage them, work with the people on the ground, the ones that in the end, are the ones using, for example, the facilities, or the ones, being part of the whole story. Thank you.
Thank you. So listen, and Katja, you live in a city where the mayor is fully on board with cycling and sustainable mobility. And he was in that video, by the way, giving high fives to the kids towards the end. But what's one thing that you think policy and decision makers ought to be doing to make cycling for healthier and more inclusive communities a reality in more places?
Yeah, that's true. Ljubljana is like a 15-minute city. Everything you can do is by bike or on foot. It's really a small town. It's really pleasant to live here. I totally agree with Lauren. Cycling infrastructure is crucial for everybody. And from the perspective of us, PBIP kids, buying a quality kids bikes is super expensive. And as a child grows, he changes minimum 4 bikes, which is often too much for a family budget. So maybe subsidizing subscriptions or subsidizing purchases for kids' bikes would motivate families to practice more cycling and be physically active for a healthier future.
Hey, thank you very much for that. Sheila, what would you say policy and decision makers should do?
I think getting towards the end of the list gives us a harder job. The good ones have gone. I was going to say protected cycle lanes because the evidence is just beyond. But if that one's gone, perfectly rightly to Lauren, then I would say speed limits, not only set, but also rigorously enforced.
Yeah, very good point. We know how important that is for safety and for people feeling comfortable about cycling. Fiona, what would you say?
Yes, well, I agree with Sheila, it gets harder. So I agree with all preceding contributions, but let me take it up and into government. Set targets and a budget. We know what to do. Everyone on this could list a long list of what to do. Of course, you need the infrastructure, the safe roads, the street designs, the pricing and subsidies and everything else. So set a target and hold the government accountable to it. A target on the amount or change of cycling in a time-bound period. And then, of course, you have to fund it, but you need the target and the funding.
Okay, thank you. Joe, we see you again, luckily. So, Joe, what would you say policy and decision makers should do?
Yeah, I think in the spirit of the report that we're publishing today, I think it is always remembering the interconnectedness in policy design between providing infrastructure, support, equipment, but then also recognizing the need for community mobilization in order to empower communities to take advantage of opportunities that are there, and that not everybody has the same opportunity, ability to take advantage of opportunities. So I think it's also keep that in mind at every point along the way. Thanks.
Hey, thank you. I do have a tiny Q&A here in the couple of minutes that we have left. How will you be celebrating World Bicycle Day tomorrow? I think I'll go the other way around this time. Joe, what will you be doing tomorrow?
I'll be taking my 1-year-old daughter on a cycle on the front of my bike with a helmet on, of course. So yeah, looking forward to enjoying the sunny weather in Denmark with the great infrastructure we have here, luckily.
Super. Okay. Fiona, how will you celebrate?
I will be going cycling. I'm now an owner of an e-bike, which I resisted for a long time, but I'm a convert to them in opening up longer distances and wider places. And I carry my dog, who's 10-year-old, 30 kilos. She's in a trailer behind me and I wear a helmet and we'll go off into the countryside.
Excellent. Okay. Sheila, how will you celebrate?
I will get the Duchess, as I like to think of my old bike, out of my shed and set off somewhere. I live in London. It's quite difficult to step outside the door without risking life and limb, but I will endeavour to find somewhere safe and calm and enjoy the very unusual sunshine we're having.
Excellent. Sounds good. Yeah, Katja.
Yeah, just the same as every weekend. My family, we cycle a lot, so we will go to this Gulovets trail that we have just behind the house. So kids are super cyclist enthusiasts, so we will do it like this.
Okay. Maren.
We have an event planned called Africa Celebrates World Bicycle Day. It's going to be the first cross-country African cycle event. We're collaborating with Nairobi, Kampala, Mombasa, Cape Town, and some other cities. And I mean, we will all cycle in our cities. We're not going to meet, obviously. But yeah, we're promoting it as the first Africa cross-country bicycle event in regard of World Bicycle Day.
That's fantastic. Lauren, what will you be doing?
Well, I love that, Maren. I think maybe I'll unofficially and last minute sign Maputo up to that as well. But yeah, we'll be going out. We don't have Mozambique's events tomorrow since we've had such a busy year. We've allowed our incredible staff to take the weekend off, but we'll all be doing our own individual cycling day.
That's great. Okay. I have a new folding bike and I'm not quite expert at folding and unfolding it yet. So I'm going to practice that a bit and see if I can, do it without falling over on it, etc. Okay. Thank you so much to everybody for participating today. We've noted some of the questions that have come in through the Q&A function. So where they're for specific panelists, we'll forward those on and otherwise. But yeah, thank you so much for participating today as panelists. Thank you to our audience for joining us, and to the ECF and the Cities Changing Diabetes staffs for making the report possible and for getting it launched today. So the report can be downloaded. I think it's been put in the chat. Is that right? Yeah, it's been put in the chat, so you can have a direct link through to it. Otherwise, you can access it through either of our websites, and we'll be promoting the links as well on our social media. So thanks again, and see you soon. Bye-bye.